Hey, welcome to the 8th episode of ALS Matters. Today we have on Mikey Stone, a 26-year-old ALS patient, recently diagnosed, Mike, I think you said in February of this year.
Yeah, February 26th.
Well, welcome to the show, man. We appreciate you being on. We'll start off with, jump right in if that's cool with you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so could you briefly describe why you decided to start documenting your ALS journey?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I started documenting my journey about 2.5 years ago, and it really kind of I started out of a place of kind of just desperation. A lot of weird stuff was going on with my body, and I had no idea what was happening. I was living in Colorado, and ended up having to move back home, and to stay with my parents because it was just getting kind of harder to do things. My body was doing weird stuff, and I was just feeling so burnt out. So I started the go around of going to doctors, and all of them are saying the same thing, like, "Hey, something is definitely wrong," But when you're younger, doctors tend to lean more on the optimistic side. So
Right.
and of course, and that's fine. And so it just, I was kind of lost. So I think one night I was just kind of really down in the dumps, just feeling really lonely and isolated. And I just was like, I wonder if there is anyone else out there going through what I'm going through. And this is, 2.5 years of, before we're here, before we really knew the extent of what was going on. And I sat up my camera, and the first video I made was literally just me sitting on my bed, kind of just it was kind of an emotional video, and I just shared what was going on with me, and kind of just shared my story, and then I hit send, and I was like, okay, maybe a couple of people will like comment, and I'll see what's going on with them. And it turned into this thing that just kind of blew up. That video ended up going viral, and I got a lot of responses from people saying like, yeah, like I'm on this diagnosis journey, and this is what's going on with me. You're not alone. And for that first time, I felt, I guess, the solidarity that I needed at the time. And it was so healing and refreshing. And one thing led to another. I just kept sharing my story, and the process and everything I was going through, my doctor's appointments, testing. One thing led to another, and it kind of turned into like me helping other people feel less alone. And I think just through that mutual, shared experience of going through the medical system and trying to get a diagnosis, trying to, figure out what's going on, I ended up connecting with a lot of people. I decided that was something that I kind of wanted to pursue, see where this went. I just wanted people, to see it to the end, because online, I didn't see really anybody showing their diagnosis journey. I kind of have only seen, like people after the diagnosis sharing their story, and that's amazing. But I kind of wanted to share like a different side of it. I wanted to share like, hey, like I am in this muddy mess. I don't know where this is going to go, or if this will even go anywhere, but I'm just going to film my day-to-day, my doctor's appointments, health updates, whatever, and we'll see where this goes. I just wanted to be as transparent as possible. So it came from really a place of desperation, and then kind of turned into something beautiful. And it's kind of crazy how far I've come in this journey. And to be able to go back to my videos and watch like the very beginning to now, I have no regrets. And it just it's been an amazing experience. Of course, it's been hard and emotional, but it's really crazy how things turned out.
Yeah, it's wild how you can never really plan that stuff out. It just seems to happen sometimes.
Yeah, I had no idea what was going to happen, and this is it.
What's been one of the things that have been so through that into what it became? What's something that's been kind of inspiring for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. definitely just following other creators with, ALS or other, you know, neurodegenerative or genetic disorders, diseases, because I see them and their journey, and also just to feel that solidarity, and like we're kind of going through the same thing, different circumstances for everybody, but that inspires me, seeing people still get up, you know show up as the best version of themselves. That's been very inspiring, and just seeing all of the advocacy work that people are doing nowadays. I think it's amazing how it's just continuing to grow, and I'm just these new creators are just keep popping up, and it just brings me so much joy and hope. But I think also things like this, brings me inspiration. It kind of keeps my gears turning, and on the road to hope and stuff. Yeah.
So shortly after you agreed to do the podcast, I followed you on Instagram. I hadn't seen your stuff yet. It hadn't popped up in the algorithm, but one of the first videos I saw was your cover of the Fray song.
Oh, yeah.
And I personally, I'd had a couple of rough weeks where I was just, kind of down. It happens to everybody when they're going through stuff like this. And man, when I watched that video, I just started crying. Like I could hear the like hurt in your voice while you were singing that song.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about like your music stuff.
Absolutely.
What encouraged you to, kind of share your music with others as you're going through this as well? Like, I feel like music production can't be an easy job, right? I imagine a lot of work goes into all these songs that everyone loves. And
yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely changed for me, just because of the physical aspect of things, having to realize my limits and work twice as hard just to do things that used to be so easy to me. And it used to just come so naturally to me. And now it's just kind of like the same thing, just with extra steps and adaptations, and, like the beautiful thing about music is it's universal. I could listen to a song in a completely different language from a completely different country and still feel something, and kind of like how you said, you were having a really rough couple weeks, and then, to come across my video and to hear it, and to kind of feel a little bit of, how I was feeling, or just an extension of that energy transferred, that's kind of why I share it, because it's therapeutic to me. I know it's therapeutic to other people. It's sometimes we just need a release. Sometimes, if a song makes you happy, it can give you hope. Or, if a song is sad, it could be that just release you've been needing for a while, but it hasn't been able to come out. It's kind of crazy how music can just move people.
Yeah.
And it's always been my therapy. Before I started doing, all this social media stuff, that was really all I had. I never really wanted to do anything else. It's just the one thing that I've always felt like I was good at, that I was, put here to do. And I started making music when I was like 10, learned the piano. 11, I was writing songs. 18, I went to school for audio engineering and production. And it was really when I was in school when I kind of started diving deeper into music in general, the therapeutic aspect of it. And that's just that's why I share my music. I think it's really cool to be able to connect with people in other ways than just sitting down, turning on a camera, and just like, okay, hey guys, this is what we're talking about today.
Right.
Sometimes when I can't find what I want to say, there's a song out there that says exactly what I want to say, exactly how I'm feeling. And it's just kind of like a transfer of energy thing. I can tap into what they're saying and kind of do my own version of it. And if anybody resonates with that, that makes me happy. When I got your message, I'm not gonna lie, I started crying, because I just, again, that solidarity, that just like,
Yeah.
I get it. It's such a reassuring feeling, and it's just so beautiful. I don't know.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, it was one of those things I was not expecting to. Yeah, I've heard that song probably, several hundred times in my life. It's fairly popular and never cried to it before, man.
Yeah, no, no, you sent me that, and I was just like, here we go, here we go. I,
Yeah.
yeah, I bawled.
Um, what was it like to have them reshare that video?
So after about like 30 minutes of just like shaking and like trying to like call everybody I knew, like I it was, obviously it's crazy when like someone, like a artist or band you look up to or have just grew up with listening to, whatever, like it's kind of like surreal, because it's like they sat down, they watched it, they liked it, and then they shared it. It's like, man, I don't know. It was just like the best feeling in the world. It just kind of felt like I did something right.
Yeah.
They got it. They got what I was trying to do. I'm glad it came off the way I intended, and it's just been a lot to me. But I was definitely shocked, to say the least. I was literally like, my hands are like shaking, and I'm just like on the phone with my best friend, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
You talked a little bit about having to make adaptations around your music production. What's one of the big things you've had to change?
Yeah, so my hands weren't really affected at first. It was mainly just like my feet and my legs, it was just lots of stiffness. It just felt like I was walking with like peg legs, and
Mhm.
so over time, it's kind of my left hand is very it's going through it, and my right hand though is totally fine. And so when it comes to like playing the piano, playing with both hands for me isn't really much of an option anymore. And playing the guitar, I can't put as much pressure down on the strings to make the chords, and so having to do everything one-handed has been kind of tricky. But it's not impossible. Just kind of like I was saying earlier, it's the same thing I used to do, just with extra steps,
Right.
adaptations, and it's really crazy how, we could just be hit with adversity and then just, all right, well, I'm still going to do this, just going to have to do it a different way. And um, cause I kind of have to go in sometimes and draw the notes in my software. I hate doing that, but it works.
Yeah.
And, also singing, haven't noticed a huge change in my speech, but there are, certain things like I can't sing for long periods of time. I am on non-invasive ventilation at night, and which is whenever I feel like it during the day. And so after a studio session, I'm going and I'm sitting on my ventilator. Sometimes I'll have to like stop and sit on it for an hour, and then come back. And there are things like projection that I kind of have had to change my style a little bit, which was frustrating at first, but I think it's kind of cool to listen to my older music and then now and kind of see how things have changed in a morbidly beautiful kind of way. It's kind of surreal, but so just things like that. As my body changes, it's just I will always have to figure out how to adapt. I was actually at my first ALS clinic in April. The whole day where they just do the whole shebang. It was the most overstimulating day of my life, but so thankful for the team there. I met with this guy. Well, the speech therapist came in. She did her like assessment. And she was just like, "Okay, we got to get you started on an eye gaze like right away." And of course, I was really scared. And I was like, "What do you guys mean?" And so she was just like, "Well, it's better to practice early, and you're a singer." It was really as soon as I told them that I was a singer and I did music, she was like, "We got to figure this out." So I talked to this guy from Improvability, and he came and set it up, did the thing, and he was just like, "I don't know how this will work with music, but I will come to your house and we will figure it out. So that's kind of cool and reassuring, knowing like as my, journey goes on, that there will possibly still be a way that I will be able to keep doing music and producing in some shape or form, even if I just become like a really cool like EDM instrumental artist. I'm cool with that too.
It's gonna be hard to swing glow sticks from a wheelchair, I feel like, though.
If I can get it like fast enough going in a circle.
There you go.
Just,
Um, what are some of is there any other like challenges you've seen outside of like the hands and kind of things like that, and the voice weakness or diaphragm weakness with projection that you've noticed you've had to work around while producing?
yeah, I mean, definitely just the staying engaged. I get kind of discouraged sometimes now, where I get frustrated just doing things one-handed, or having to say like, all right guys, I gotta go take a break,
Yeah.
and that's, it's the physical side of things, but it's also the emotional, mental side of things, where it kind of gets me down. When I'm making music, I want to put in, the right kind of energy, to be able to transfer onto the track. And sometimes I can't do that because I get upset at myself, which there is no reason to get upset at myself, but it's just that like, oh, this is so frustrating. I know what I want to do. I know how I should do it, what the easiest way is, but
Right.
now I got to do it this way, and it's going to take twice as long. So, that's the mental aspect is definitely kind of hinders in the creative process, and and that kind of stuff, which is something that I didn't expect. I knew physically, it would get more challenging, but I really was not prepared for the mental, emotional kind of, side of things when it comes to that. That was definitely a shock to me.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the things that I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there that expect that, right? But I have a family version of ALS, or a genetic version of ALS, and I've gotten to see that through my family's journey through it. And
Yeah.
it's one of the things that even having seen it my entire life, like the mental side, I've always been very headstrong. So if I put my mind to it, I know I can do whatever the thing is, right? And that's something I've personally had to struggle with. I had the opportunity to go to the in the legacy meetings this past weekend, and just like getting into the airport, getting to the gate, like just being stiff from sitting on an airplane for an hour and a half, 2 hours, like those kinds of things
Right.
really get to you. And you're like, I used to be able to do this just fine. It is very
Yeah.
frustrating.
It's so frustrating, and it's just weird too. It's just like, it's like, what's going on, but it's just like, this is crazy. Like
Yeah.
you know, like you said, just the other day I was at the bar with some friends for my birthday, and I was hanging out, and we were sitting on these benches, and I was just like, I gotta get up and like stretch or something. Like it was just crazy how stiff I got, stiff I got just from sitting there.
Yeah.
It's the those in between moments where it's like you used to just shut your brain off and just do it without thinking about it. And now it's like I'm aware.
Yeah. There's definitely physical fatigue, but I don't know that a lot of people will really think about the mental fatigue that comes with having to like plan to do those kind of things sometimes, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's a lot of mental prep, especially when you're gonna have to go to the airport or traveling, or even sometimes just going to the mailbox, going to the
Yeah.
pool, whatever you want to do. It's that there for me. There's this like buffer that kind of happens in my brain now, where yesterday it was really nice out, so I wanted to go to the pool, and I had to think about like, okay, well, my pool's not really wheelchair accessible, so I couldn't take my power chair down there. So, okay, well, we're going to switch to my AFOs, and, Walker will go old school. And then, then it was busy to get there. And I'm thinking, okay, like, I don't want to take up so much space, but I have all this stuff with me
Stuff.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, my walker is like huge. And so I, have to think about where I'm going to sit. It's just doing things with extra steps. It's really that mental aspect of it is it's like, doing hurdles, jumping hurdles. It's really crazy.
Yeah. What's one thing you wish everyone knew about ALS?
Gosh, I mean, of course, when you hear about ALS, it's you think of the physical stuff, and to be fair, I didn't even really know what ALS was before. I know I watched a couple of your videos and interviews, and I've kind of been keeping up with this podcast, and I know you have a familial version of ALS, and mine is kind of like weird and different because I have a genetic mutation in my SLC1A2 gene. Only like 400 people in the world have mutations in this gene, and it's really not understood, but they know it can cause epilepsy, and I have epilepsy, and that it has links to neurodegenerative diseases like susceptibility to like ALS, Alzheimer's, stuff like that, and I guess I just wish people knew that it comes in like all different shapes and sizes. There's so many different like forms and versions of it, and everyone with ALS is different. You could read on paper like ALS causes this, and it sounds like a pretty steady timeline, but from the people that I've met and talked to, it seems like everyone is kind of different in their progression. Everyone handles it differently. I wish people knew that, again, going back to the emotional side of things, that, not just for the person who has ALS, but their loved ones, families, caregivers as well. I mean, it is a family affair. I remember the first day at the first ALS clinic, the first person who came in for rounds was the psychiatrist, the therapist, and it was the first time that someone really like sat me and my mom down. She was at the appointment with me, and was like, "You two are going to get very close, very fast if you weren't already. It's when one person has ALS, the whole family has ALS, kind of thing." And I wish people kind of knew that it's just there's so many aspects to it. It's like layers. It's like peeling back an onion. There's this thing, there's this thing, and it's not just so black and white. And I think that's why talking about it is important, especially just as much as you can. I think with as much, the more information out there, I think the more people will learn about not just what ALS is, but what it's like to live with ALS, or what it's like to care for someone with ALS, and just the different types of ALS. Not everyone, my situation is very weird. Genetics are very woo woo to me. I don't understand how it can just, happen in some people, like me. Like I didn't inherit it from either of my parents. I have a de novo mutation, so it just happened to me. But yeah, I think just I wish people knew the different aspects of what all comes with ALS. It's definitely a package.
Yes, it is. What's it like having epilepsy on top of this? I imagine that makes it much, much more difficult.
It is extremely difficult. You know, my geneticist, and a couple of other doctors have told me this. I've never heard this phrase before, but just from my doctors. But when I, get a new doctor, you got to go down the history, and it's like, oh yeah, I have this mutation that causes this and this and this, whatever. And they're just like, oh wow, you hit the genetic lottery. And I'm like, oh gee, thank you. And
Right.
yeah, lucky me. And it definitely it adds so much more to than just ALS. ALS is hard enough, and then when I have seizures, it's just really like, man, I am put in my place. When I have every time I have a seizure, I'm literally just put in my place. I'm like, okay, this is my reality. It is what it is, but it definitely stops me from doing a lot of stuff that ALS already stops me from doing. You know, like I have these special glasses that I got for like photosensitive epilepsy. And so, you know, before I couldn't really go to concerts. Now I can, but I have to wear these like chunky glasses that are like so tinted with this like blue UV film, and I can barely see the people on stage, you know, and I'm already in ADA seating off to the side, you know, kind of. And so it seems like so much sometimes. You know, whenever was on um, the ALS medication as well as my epilepsy meds, I was like, all right, epilepsy, ALS, all right, done. It's just kind of crazy how um, someone can just have both, but it's weird how, you know, I still feel, and I say this in like a very like loose way, like I do feel lucky to be able to have all this and to be able to share it with people. You know, you know, everybody is going through something, whether you have a rare disease or not, and you're just going through the motions of life. I always like to say like different boat, same ocean, because we're all just on our own boats trying to get across to whatever's on the other side of the ocean. And to be able to, you know, just share my story and say like, hey, you know what, yeah, it sucks, but you know, we're here and this is what I can do about it, because there's not much I can do otherwise than, you know. But it's definitely challenging. Sometimes I do wake up and I'm like, I cannot believe this is my life. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I heard can't remember where I got this, but I heard someone say one time the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, whether it's stubbing your toe on the nightstand or, you know,
Yeah,
it's kind of the situation we're in with ALS, right?
yeah,
Like your response to that is that's still the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
right.
What's something that brings you hope outside of like your music and the response you've gotten from all the, you know, followers you're getting and things like that?
Yeah, I think just, you know, the research that's going on. You know, well, it's 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 kind of difficult because to answer that question, because you know, I still am. I try to be a positive person, always optimistic, always hopeful. But, you know, for a while there, especially before we kind of started connecting dots, and I was just kind of in this year and a half, 2.5, you know, year of limbo. Um, I, I didn't really feel hopeful, and things that used to bring me hope and joy, like weren't. My world just felt really, really gray for a huge chunk of time. And I just finally kind of sat down with myself and I was like, what do I need to do to get out of this? I was like, I'm obviously not getting better. You know, I could do the whole radical acceptance thing. I could just say, like, this is it. You know, it is what it is. But I kind of just had to learn how to find hope in the weirdest places. Like, whether it's, you know, somebody opening a door for me as I go into like a deli or something, you know, or seeing, you know, something online like an inspirational quote, or the birds that are making a nest on my patio, like, you know, the neighbors walking, you know, with their kids, you know, around the neighborhood. Like it's so weird. Like I literally look at everything as like a gift, like a blessing, you know, now, and it just you know, it brings me hope. Obviously there's the stuff online, like you said, like connecting with followers, you know, people going through similar situations, social media, you know, but it really is like the little things. And like, I mean, like the littlest of little things can just be like, you know what, I have hope. It may, you know, I mean, it may be an illusion, but you know, at least I have it.
At least you have something, right?
Yeah, it's something to hold on to. Yeah. Does
Yeah,
that
it's weird. It's weird how the lens you view the world through changes afterwards, right?
yeah, it's weird. It's definitely you know, something you get used to, but at first it's like, it kind of seems like your world is shrinking at first, but really you're just like honing in on, again, like
The important stuff.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
What inspires you to keep going?
Oh man. I mean, so many things, my friends, my family. I think just seeing what people are doing online, and it's with the advocacy work, and all the organizations working super hard to help us figure this out. The resources that we do have available, things like that keep me going. I was really scared that it was just going to be like, this is it, sorry, and then I'm just left alone to just be. And that was not the case. It was actually literally the opposite. Like the month after, they were like, hey, like, yeah, this is, most likely what it is. And it was just a whole month of just talking to people, connecting, people reaching out to me, like organizations, and how can I help? How can we help? Um, you know, stuff like that has really made a huge impact in my life, and I think that it will continue to do that. I think it's all just going to keep growing. I think it's going to, um, inspire so many people. But of course, I'm weird, and I look for it in all in the strangest places. Like pop culture, TV. Connections, just connections with people. It all inspires me.
Yeah, that was something I've noticed over the last probably year of doing a lot more, talking more about my situation and
Yeah.
meeting other families that are in, even worse situations, which feels weird to say, but
Hmm.
everyone so far that I've met have all been very, what's the word I'm looking for? Upbeat's not the right word, but determined may be the right word. Like just
Yeah.
determined that we're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the things that has really like kept me going. And knowing that because so we have the SOD1 version and we have this Qalsody medication that seems to be working well for my family, but
Hmm.
the 98% of folks out there with ALS don't have that, right? So
Right.
it's even to see those folks that are going through it and are still hopeful is kind of what keeps me going. And it's interesting to see like n- knowing that there may not be anything for you, still having that positive attitude is
Yeah.
definitely helped change my mindset when I was first diagnosed.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference. I mean, mindset is, and again, it's so hard. I mean, like you really have to, you know, go through it to get there. There's different stages, of course. There's the shock, there's the reality, the weight, and then after that, it's kind of like, okay, well, what can I? I can't just sit here and be miserable, and you can, and if you did, I would not judge you. It's absolutely not. It's hard, but no, I agree with everything you just said. It's mindset is literally everything, and the I see a lot of people online that kind of just talk about it like it's just, oh yeah, I've got this, I got ALS, and um, to see people now getting kind of um, mad, I guess, in a way, just like, we have got to figure this out. I have no other choice other than to get through this. you know um, that's that's also like super inspiring, and that's why I love following along with this podcast, and create other creators. It's I mean, it's life-changing stuff. There's nothing that can prepare you for it. There's nothing that you know it's it is what it is. But I totally agree with everything that you just said.
So speaking of podcasts, you just kicked off your podcast, right? Mikey's House.
I did, yeah, Mikey's House.
What got you wanting to do that? Just general wanting to tell your story, or was there a specific situation where like, this is why I need to do this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely want to share more of my story. I've definitely done, I think, a good job of that just through social media and short videos and stuff like that. But I kind of just wanted to have an extension of that where people can go and, I feel like my social media, I show a mix of both. I show the heavy and then I show the positive and light moments in my life. And I wanted to create the podcast, a podcast, because I just wanted to do an extension of that. I wanted to be able to tell my story more in depth and not really have a time limit. I kind of want it to just be like, I named it Mikey's House because I just want it to be kind of like you're just coming over, we're just
Right. Just
chilling,
chilling. Yeah.
chilling, hanging out, and we can talk about ALS or epilepsy, or we can get deep, or if we just want to have like a whole episode on like Bigfoot, we can do that. Like there's no rules, and I just kind of wanted to share a little bit more about myself, my life, my personality, other than just
Being pigeonholed into kind of like the ALS stuff, right?
yeah, exactly, just kind of branch out. But hopefully it does act as an extension of just awareness, and just makes not only my story more known, but just ALS and genetic diseases and epilepsy, all that stuff. I really, that's kind of the goal. Whatever we talk about, I think that's kind of just the end goal, is just raising more awareness. If someone finds me and looks me up and then sees everything else, then I did my job. If someone goes out and supports an organization or whatever after, cool with me. But we could talk about anything.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know you're signed up for the Nexus conference this year, as am I. Pretty excited to meet you in person. Hopefully,
Yeah, me too.
y'all can have a good time there.
Yeah.
What's one thing you're hoping to maybe learn there, or what's one of your goals while you're there? What's something you want to make sure you do?
I definitely connect with as many people in person as possible. I think there's a few people that have virtually met that are going to be there that I'm really excited to meet. And I'm excited to meet you and a couple other people, just people who get it. And I'm excited to learn about new research, and just hear about all the action going on in the ALS space and community. I'm excited to hear people's stories and people speak, and just kind of be in the where it's happening, people getting involved. And I think that's kind of all of it. I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. I've never gone, but I'm so excited. I'm going with a good friend of mine. She's excited. It's funny because when I told her that I was going, and then I signed up to go, and I was going to ask, I was asked her, I was like, hey, do you want to go? And she sent me, she was like, Mikey, no way. She was like, I was literally just going to go by myself just to like be a better friend and like learn, as much as I could. And I was like, okay, so we're going together. It's settled. So,
Yeah.
which was really
That's
cute. Yeah.
I say it's awesome that you got friends that are already doing those kinds of things, right? Like that to me lets you know real quick who your friends are,
Yeah, absolutely. It's, my friends are literally like angels. I literally call them my angels, because I don't know how I got so lucky to have met such beautiful and amazing people. They truly are beautiful souls. And, when she sent me that, it was just like, I cried, but it just, it meant a lot to me.
Yeah.
It was very special to me. And it just meant a lot.
So I got to go the first year, and I did not know what to expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I will say my personal experience is the first time I'd met anyone outside of my family and got to have a conversation with them with ALS, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to see how those folks are approaching it with the courage that they have was very inspiring. I'd kind of made a decision earlier that year that, hey, I need to do something because I have this great opportunity, right? I've got SOD1 ALS. I have a treatment that's working well for me and my family. So now I need to do something to give back, kind of thing, right? And just sitting and talking with, I think it was the first night we had like a little group session with only ALS patients,
Wow.
and like listening to those folks' stories and just hearing all the different experience was well worth the trip.
For sure. That's amazing. That's really cool to hear. I'm I'm excited for to share a similar experience. To be fair, there's not really any in-person support groups where I'm at, other than I think I went by a couple people in the hallway at the ALS clinic the first day, but I didn't get a chance to like hear anybody's stories or really talk to someone, get to know someone, and I'm really excited to be able to do that this time.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth it. It
It's awesome.
definitely made a difference for me.
Really, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome.
Um, so yeah, everybody sign up and register for ALS Nexus.
Yes, sign up.
um, no, Olivia just said it's going to be really fun.
I
um,
just
um, well, Mikey, thank you for joining today. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to put out there?
I thank you for having me. This has been so fun. It was so nice to meet you and to be here. And I just want to just express, the importance of advocacy work and raising awareness. I kind of have been calling it the chain reaction of awareness. It's, you talk about it, then it brings awareness. Awareness leads to funding. Funding leads to research. Research leads to better treatments and hopefully one day a cure. So, if anybody out there is feeling like you want to share your story or feel inclined to just talk about ALS, or it's not um, going unseen or unheard. It's important, and I think the more we talk about it, the better chances and we all have. And I think again, it just spreads hope, and I think that's extremely important in life, is just to have hope and have faith. So if anybody out there is feeling like sharing your story, just go for it. Why not?
Well said. For anyone that wants to follow along, what's the Instagram? Where can they find the podcast? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So my socials are all at Rare with Mikey. And my podcast you can find on all major platforms. You can also watch it on YouTube. It's just called Mikey's House Podcast. And super excited to share that with everybody. And I think that's pretty much it. My band's name is Weekend State on all your music stuff, whatever you listen to music on. And yeah.
Well, Mikey, thank you for joining us today, man. And for everyone watching, please like, share, subscribe. Um, we're here because ALS matters and we need a cure.
Absolutely.